Good afternoon. I hope you are ready for this. This is the most interesting talk to have at 3 o'clock in the afternoon before you want to go home. Because now we're going to talk about financials and everything around that. And it can be quite the most boring subject for our medical professionals. And depending on who are medical professionals here. So just for me to see who is medical and who is accountants. Medical, hands up. Accountants, bookkeepers. Oh, I can talk to someone. Okay, but the idea is obviously today is the subject is accounting antics, numbers that don't bore. So the idea is here to just give you an indication of what is important in a medical practice, in an accounting environment. And it is not here to show you a demonstration of the system. It is talked about specific concepts and processes and certain flows that you need to take into consideration in a medical practice and to make that a more successful process going forward. Yes, I'm going to show you the boring stuff, and that is the actual reports. But for our accountants, that will make absolutely sense. For our doctors, we need to understand why it makes sense for accountants. So the idea is a bit of showing you some structure and what is important, and then also showing you a bit of the reports. But I've been given instruction to make this also a bit going faster, because I can stand here for 2 hours. I think the presentation is built for an hour, so let's see if we can make it shorter so you can finish by 4 o'clock in that sense. So I will rush in certain areas. If you have questions, please raise your hand so we can cover maybe 1 or 2 questions. Otherwise, we'll do that at the end if you have questions there. If something does not make sense at all, please stop me and we might have a quick discussion around it. And then we can hash that out if needed. So numbers that don't bore, so the idea I have here is just to talk about the 32 aspects. Like I said, what is important in the practice. And I'm going to start here. What you see versus what adds up to. So the idea is here to focus on, in my accounting, in my practice, I have gears that runs every day. And that is built around invoices, receipts, and journals. So it looks like an invoice, but it runs like a business. Every day you have accounting that happens in your practice, whether you realize it or not. It is happening. It's our responsibility, your responsibility in the medical industry to try and pick this up and then react on that concept. And obviously you have studied to be a medical professional and not an accountant. So the idea is just today to give you a few indicators on what you need to focus on and then going from there. So that's why I break it typically down into accounting that keeps the practice moving to accounting that keeps the business alive. So what I'm talking about, the small accounting, is this that happens every day. It's from the walk-in to the write-off. What the patient sees and what the accounting does behind the scenes. So every day we see the patient walks in, charge for consultation, patient pays the consultation, patient receives a discount, account is 0. So that is a medical practice, in a nutshell. You see your patient, you bill your patient, they pay, they walk out. That is the accounting we typically see from a medical perspective. And that is generating an invoice, a receipt, and doing a journal. Very simple, very easy. But obviously accounting is much more than just this. There's a lot more information that we need for our bookkeepers, for our auditors, than just a simple invoice and receipt. Patient comes in, I charge, she pays, he walks. That's very easy. For us as medical professionals, that is perfect. But that's not what we need at the end of the day for the accounting side. So let's go a bit further. So what is accounting that keeps the business alive? It's all in the details. Financial control starts with flows. So this is where we need to break it down. Debtors, creditors, stock, cash books, ledgers, VAT control, trial balance, income statement, balance sheet. It's a lot of words. But this is the real financials that happens in a business. Not just a patient walking in and out, invoice, receipts, journals. So this is what we need to focus on, and this is what I will be dealing with in the rest of the presentation, is to break down what is debtors, what is creditors, what is the stock, cash books, and all the other structures around it that we as medical practitioners need to be aware of, what accountants want to see at the end of the month. And that will be the focus that we're going to work on. So from here, we go back. Petty reports versus dirty data. Now this is where things get actually very interesting. So the idea here is, what do we need to focus on? What is our problems that we're going to face? And how are we going to get around that problems in a certain level? And as you can see, I did this presentation to make it much more sense than just throwing numbers at you. So I hope it will be fun going through this and making sense. So in other words, so many numbers, so many reports, so many statistics, no time, no accountant. This creates chaos for our medical people, because this is what we want to see. So in this chaos process, as you can see with all the text here, you are a professional and not an accountant. Diagnosis confident, but debtors confused. You are not an accountant, so you don't understand the process necessarily around it. And especially if I throw all these terms around: invoices, receipts, journals, credit notes, refunds, payments, debtors, creditors, financial, age analysis, profit and loss, variance report, trial balance sheet, income statement, VAT report, day end, month end, year end. I'm guessing as a professional medical, this is not any sense to you at the end of the day. But for our accountants, this is exactly what they want. This is what they want to see at the end of the day. And for me as a medical professional, how will I be able to assist in this process in ensuring that that information is supplied to the necessary people where this is important. So now that the chaos has been created, how will you be helped? And at the end of the day, good medicine can't fix bad money. Very simple. So now for the first time, the doctor is scared and have to deal with this problem. And this is where the systems comes in to help the medical professional. And so this is an integrated, fully financial system. So you can treat your patients and do not panic at the end of the day. So this is where GoodX comes into, where we want to assist in this process, that you deal every day with your patients, and the system hopefully will deal with the rest. But unfortunately, you still need to input the information. You know, I think we all know that. Also, very nice text of the data you put in is the data you get out in the end of the day. So here is the first big advice I think we can talk about. Ready to fix this problem, you have to ask you the 3 questions: why, who, and when. Why? You need to understand accounting and practice in medical environment. Who will be the resources and employees that will accomplish these tasks? And when will this take place? It's very easy to say, I'm going to use an accounting package in the medical software, in the medical industry, in your practice. But you need to ask you these questions. Who's going to do this? When will they do this? And why do you want to do this? I had actually quite a few questions today. I have Sage or Pastel, why do I need to use GoodX? And that's a very good question. And it's all about, do you have the time and the resources to do this in your medical practice? So it's easy to outsource this to someone, but they will fee you for it. If you can keep this internally in your own medical practice, then you can just send out your reports. But you need someone to capture these transactions, and you need someone and time to do these transactions. And it's like I always say, it's easy to employ a stock controller, but specifically, if possible, someone that works in the medical industry or a nurse, not someone with packed on a shelf in a shop 2 days ago. So the same with the accounting as well. Anyone can do it, but you need someone that knows a bit more than just working on a computer. So when you start looking at financials in your medical practice, ask yourself these questions and make sure you have a good answer for yourself on that questions in order to incorporate this into the system. So why do I need integrated financials? One system. GoodX is based on a financial practice. I used GoodX as a client in 2005 in a small accounting practice under DOS system. So we did trial balances, income statements, VAT reports for our clients. I did not even know GoodX was a medical system until I started working at GoodX 20 years ago. And I'm still here, and we grow. So it's awesome to see after 40 years that GoodX is still going into areas that we never thought was going to happen. Also part of this is fraud prevention. We have a lot of practices closing down because people steal medical aid money. You have control over this. Saving money and time for audit fees. Saving time in the practice management. Know the state of your practice. Control your own money. From a medical practitioner, the biggest problem you will face is you do not know how much money you have. And that should be concerning at the end of the day. The who is going to assist you in this process? The difference between a bookkeeping and accounting. Bookkeeping, someone captures all these transactions in the system for you, and accountant is the one that analyzes the data and generate the final results, reports. That's a very basic description of it. You can go much deeper in that. But who is involved in this whole process? The practitioner, the practice manager, reception, billing controller, cashier, credit controller, stock controller, and the bookkeeper if you have someone in your practice. They all will be part of this whole process at the end of the day. And then when will we do this? Daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, by quarterly, quarterly. So this will happen almost every day. Unless you want it to happen in certain structures, but that should be the process if possible going forward. So now we know the 3 questions, and now we can go to the final point on this slide and say, listen, okay, so control starts at the front desk. Every number begins with a patient and a process. And that's one of the things you need to put into place is workflows, internal controls, so I can get to better management. So once this is in place, my workflows and my internal controls, then I will be able to tell what's going on. But first, I want to start with at the door. So this is where I feel our accounting should start. And what I'm trying to do here is, GoodX is now busy developing a new course for accounting in the medical industry. And the idea is here to focus on an actual building, and you must realize that every time you open the door, there is a financial implication. Every time you go to a specific room, there is a financial implication. That's how you as a medical practitioner must start looking at this. Every space in your building where you operate, where you do your practice, something financially is happening. So even something like bathroom, the pharmacy, reception, waiting room. So reception, the telephone, there is costs, the paper, the salaries, cleaning services, advertisements. You just need to look at every area in your practice and just imagine what financially can happen there. Something needs to be bought and some expenses will take place. And in certain areas there's an income like the consulting room, and the pharmacy is based the income, but there could be other expenses or assets or something involved in that process. So this is a course that we will have ready hopefully in the next few months. You're more than welcome to sign up for this course that will give you a more detailed description and analysis of how we view accounting in a medical practice. So from here, the idea is that you understand that expenses happens with every door switch. So when you open a door, switching a light, making coffee, using the toilet, sending appointments, taking money, print statements, pays, salaries, that's expenses that goes into the financial side of the accounting world. And all of that simple actions will have a financial application or effect at the end of the day. Same with my income, invoicing my patient, invoicing a patient for procedures, invoicing for medication, consumables, or renting office space to another doctor is an income, and that goes into a financial structure at the end of the day. That's very simple once you start breaking it down, looking at every room. And that hopefully will help our doctors or medical personnel to view this a bit more with a relaxing eye You're trying to run away when you hear accounting. Next slide is liabilities and assets. So invoicing stock, invoicing consumables, buying stock, that's a current asset. Nice words that I'm throwing around here. Buying an X-ray machine with your own money, fixed asset with a current liability. Buying an X-ray machine with a loan triggers something else. That's also something as a medical professional you need to be aware of. You are not an accountant, so always ask your bookkeepers or accountants to assist you with this. But the idea is that you understand that there is a small difference between buying an X-ray machine or equipment with your own money or going to the bank and loan that money to buy that equipment. It's a different representation on your financial statements. And that's what the auditors also would like to see from you when you provide that information to them at the end of the day. Okay, so that's why we say we bring this up in a ground floor where your stock room and storeroom and servicing involved us. This is a lot of the decisions and supporting operations takes place. There's your external areas. How will that affect your financials with all the different areas in that, up to management offices and boardroom where the decision making will take place in this financial structure at the end of the day. It's a nice view to break this down. I'm guessing if we're doing a presentation next year again, this is how I will do that presentation and work it through these areas more in detail. This is just a heads up of what's coming in the future for this. Okay, and like I said, so now here we break it just down to show you on the second floor, there's the income and expense, asset and liability, and what you do, how will it affect in that specific areas. I'm not going to go into detail in this report. Like I said, this will be in the course, and I will cover it more in the next presentation, maybe for next year, where I will break this bit down more into detail, making it much more easier for our medical professional to actually start to realize what area will have what financial application or structure in your financial side. Okay, so that was at the door. So everything happens if you break it down in a building, view your practice from the moment you start through the whole building and imagine where something is going to happen. That is what you as a medical practitioner, as a doctor of your own practice need to realize. Every place you enter in a medical practice, something is happening. Okay, workflow. This is a very detailed diagram. It's also part of our current course. We just break this basically down into 3 section phases, processes, and functions. You need to understand that there's a few phases: practice and system configuration phase, a workflow phase, a recon phase, and an internal audit phase. And that is then broken down into processes and functions. So I'm just going to skip through this. So function is, for instance, configuration, bank statement processing is a function, petty cash management, financial management, corrections, recon, one thing. So here in this course, we will break it down exactly what should be your phases you need to look at to make that a bit more easier to understand. The processes in that phases you need to give attention to. And then the actual function that needs to be done, where you need to allocate physical transactions into the system. This is just a quick view of that whole process, but in this course, we will define it more clearly and break it down in that sense. Internal controls. So for you to get to that level, I need to understand debtors, creditors, stock, financial. This is how GoodX is currently structured. Debtors is our patients. Creditors is any supplier that you buy stock from or any financial creditor that is expense to the practice to a certain level. Stock as assets and financials. And then we break it down daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. What is the tasks, the processes that must happen at each of those levels? So that you understand from a medical point of view what I need to do daily. Is there a cash-up report? What needs to happen weekly? Is there maybe a switch report that I need to look at? What is happening monthly? Is there income and expenses that I need to look at? What happens bi-quarterly or yearly? Is there a yearly needs to take place? Is there stock takes that need to take place? And what is the processes around it? So if you work out all these controls on your own from an accounting perspective, We break it down into daily controls, weekly controls, monthly controls, and we say, okay, there's your reports, there's your date, there is your income statement, there's weekly reports, and we will guide you then through this process. And hopefully for that point of the internal controls can be set up in your practice, and then you understand what you need to do daily, weekly, monthly. That is important for you to tackle this and figure out how to go from there. Once I've settled and get all of this in place, so my workflows is now in place, my internal controls is in place, and I understand what needs to happen on the debtors and creditors and financial stock side, then management can now actually come to a point. Now you have more an idea of what is happening, you have more an idea of what's going wrong in that sense, and you have more an idea of what needs to go to the bookkeepers to finish the financial statements. And this we also break down for you into literally the stock environment, the creditors environment, the debtors environment, the accounting environment, and the claim management is subdivisions that we have under all sections. You will find something like that. That will give you also a nice breakdown. You'll see this even if you go now today to some of our online learning center, most of our current manuals will have some of those controls already in place. So if you're already an existing client, you have access to that. If you're not an existing client, you can also sign up to do certain courses where this functions and structures will be explained in detail. Okay, so financial start at the door. And now we can go through that, control, and everything hopefully will get together from there. What is my time? I can skip a whole section. 10 minutes. 10 minutes, okay. Let's skip then a whole section, the real numbers, the part no one sees but always gets blamed for. Or in other words, medical above, business below, the scary stuff that lives in the ledgers. So this is where I actually break down more in detail what's happening on the debtors, creditors, stock, cash books, ledgers, VAT reports, and all the details around it. For a medical professional, you just need to be aware of there are certain structures in the financial world. There's always a general ledger that the bookkeeper wants to look at. There will be a detailed transactions in that ledgers, and then I look at financial reports. Very simple, if you break it down in that. So in my general ledgers, you will have debtors. So debtors is your patient. Every time you work with a patient, that is someone that owes you money. Every time a patient walks in, you bill that patient, they pay, they settle their account, that is a debtor. Or anybody you give additional income to, like someone renting office space in your practice. Creditors, that is suppliers typically, or anyone that you owe money in the end of the day. Stock is the full stock management, that is an asset, so that is stock can be sold into money or can be converted into money. So that's why at all times we need to know what is your stock value on hand. Cash books, that is your bank. All the money coming in at reception, cash, credit cards. You need to manage that process. Your general ledgers, your GL as we call it, that's all the other expenses and income on your bank statement. Comes together here, and then out of our system we can generate then a VAT report. If you run your debtors in full, all your patients every day, you run your creditors in full every day, you pull in your bank statement from the bank into GoodX, then I can generate a VAT report every 2 months, depending on how you registered your size. And you know exactly what you need to then pay to receive your revenue. Also, I will be able to give you an income statement, balance sheet or trial balance that you just simply can mail them to the accountants or bookkeepers. But we need to ask that question is who, when, and where. You need to make sure you understand who's going to be involved. General ledgers, a complete record of a company's transaction over a period of time. There's nice information here, chart of accounts. And I like that text because you need to name the monster before you can fight it. So that is just get this from your bookkeeper. If you do not know any of these structures, contact them so that I need my GL structure. And obviously when we load GoodX on your system, we will load a default structure already in place. So GoodX already in the back end runs from income, expenses, fixed accounts, assets, liabilities, all those fancy terms is already part of your GoodX system. If you want to use the financial module, just contact us and we can go deeper into, there will be obviously extra cost to this, but the idea is that you can load all of this into the system and already run your financials to a certain level. You're already doing every day your patients. So your data part's already covered. If your stock practice, you're already doing your creditors, suppliers already in the system. So almost that is covered. So the only thing that's left over is your bank statements. So once you import the bank statements, you allocate them to the correct ledgers, you can generate basic reports and like reports from it. It sounds easy. It's not as that easy. You just need to talk to your bookkeeper and your right, actually link it to the right accounts. But the idea is we will give you training from our side also to go through this process. Okay, let's quickly speed up transactions. I'm not going to go into detail in this. Where the paper trail begins or doesn't. Money in, money out, is it logged on the system? Everything that happens in your bank account should be on the system. All the money in, all the money out. If you want to use a financial structure in your medical practice, that is the golden rule. You cannot decide today, oh, I have an invoice of 10,000, but I'm only going to capture 5,000 of it in the system. If you have an invoice in front of you, if you have a bank statement in front of you, what's on that will need to be duplicated into the system. So there's my data. I'm not going to go in detail into this. We just break it down, but it's turnover, cash flow, and journals. That is what we see under standard data transactions. Turnover is your invoice, cash flow is in your receipt, and journals is typically small balances, write-off, or bad debts. There's a ledger, but I'm going to skip that. There's an H analysis that you must send to your bookkeeper or auditor at the end of the day. So what is my H analysis? That's all the money that is owed by the patients. That is a crucial document that must go to our financial bookkeepers and auditors. Income and expenses are treated always, and it will always be under general in the GoodX environment. So all these transactions will go to the right place. So any auditor will see that your income and expense for that area, and will also be able to see that under actual trial balance, my data control, that's your H analysis, and the income that I get from my patients. Same with the creditors. Expenditures is invoices in. Cash flow is when you pay your creditors, and journal will be a creditor discount. Same process, it's a ledger. So what is the ledger so important? The auditors can see all the detail of everything that happens on that creditor. Same with the H analysis, same with the expenses that will show them on the expense report and back up to the trial balance. Okay, so from here, stock, same principle, all stock in, all stock out, needs to be captured. And then the accounting side, the only thing that remains is importing actually your bank statements. Just going to go through the same principle, income and expenses on the stock side, trial and balance on that side, and the same principle for my accounting. There's going to be a ledger, there's going to be cash books, there's going to be recon, there's going to be trial balance. Assets, expenditures, journals, we explain this also in detail more, so that you understand from a point when we do the training review what needs to go where, but always remember GoodX is not an accountant. You need to talk to your accountants when you set this up in place. Okay, so this will show you a nice report, but I'm going to skip through this. There's going to be a cash book structure where you will set out your cash and your debit cards, so you can recon every day along with your petty cash. That cash books need to be reconciled on a daily basis. Then I can import my bank statement and actually do a reconciliation in the system where I link it to the specific accounts. And then it should reconcile in the end of the day with the actual bank statement. So all these reports are available for your bookkeeper, and it's easy to train someone to use this. At the end of the day, you're going to send a trial balance to the bookkeepers that's showing your full financial structures. And the golden rule of the trial balance is what's on the debit side must equal be on the credit side. Okay, financial reports, I'm going to just quickly mention it. We generate a VAT report if all of that transactions be captured in GoodX. You don't need to recapture this in Pastel or QuickBooks or send it to someone to analyze this. Please just make sure once you communicate with your bookkeepers that you know what items are VATable, especially in the expense side, and that it is correctly captured on the system. At the end of the day, I can give you a report that shows what you need to pay. We can print a balance sheet for them, or I can just skip through this, explaining current liabilities, fixed assets, current assets. I'm not going to go through that. And I just want to end with my VAT control income statement as well. So this is very important just for the doctors to maybe see at any stage. You can see if you're making a profit or a loss. If you capture the full debtors, the creditors, the financial, and import, I will be able to see that. At the end of the day, break down your income, break down your expenses, and then you will have your profit and loss. If you do this in real time on the system, you can print this at any stage you need it. Let's skip that. Just want to get to the end of this quickly. Okay, the first number that catches the eye. Now that can depend on how you look at this. It could be either your profit or your loss. Hopefully you make a profit. So the idea is, please do not spend any money that you have in your bank account just because you can. That makes a big difference in your cash flow at the end of the day, that you must make sure that you have available funds where you need it. So first thing first, make sure you have a budget in place. Once your budget in place, you know more or less where your money will go to. Then make sure you know where is your cash flow, what is happening there. Do you have it in your bank account? Can you account for every cent at the end of the day? And that will determine then whether you will have a profit and loss, and that can also be generated in through the reports that we talked about. So in a nutshell, to finish up, accounting starts at the door of your practice. Actually, if we take the accounting course we're going to do in the future, it starts when you register your practice number. That's where the whole process starts. Then from there you need to ask why, who, and when. Make sure you have your workflow in place, your cash flow is you're aware of, and you have your budget. And then hopefully you will not sink your little ship that you're hopefully building into something big at the end of the day. Please just make sure that you can go onto our website and you will see we are busy setting up this course. It's almost done. And you're more than welcome to sign up for this course and give you more details. If you need any other information about accounting cell, please phone GoodX. You can do demonstrations for you on what we're currently capable of. And you can see if you can use this in your environment. And that's it. Thank you.